So I'm going to tell you a secret right now that spending $5K a month in PPC is riskier than spending 40. And you actually told us this, and we didn't, not that we weren't listening, but we verified, I guess. But that's when we really started seeing the leads come in because we were the top bid. We're like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, you're spending $500,000 in ad spend. How are you going to tell me that spending that versus 60K is more risky? Well, just the way the bidding process, the AdWord process, the way all that works was we were never going to get enough leads to even cover the 5K. Whereas if you go up to say 20K, you're going to start outbidding everyone else in there. I didn't understand how the bids work until this. You could sit at 1 million, 2 million, 3 million for a while, but like to make the jump to 5 million, you have to be ready to spend money. And so then I learned how to communicate vision. So have staff meetings, have emails, have ways to communicate with your people where you see not only yourself and your company, but them and their families and their futures. That's what I implemented. And within the first month, I hit like 90K. That was the day I was like, what am I doing? There's so much smarter ways to make money. And that's when I started like researching private equity, venture capital. There's not many marketing avenues where you're signing a contract every 4 leads. Like if you're doing 1 to 10, you're like knocking it out of the park, top 1% in the country, especially in wholesaling. Dude, we were cruising contracts. It was a lot of fun. You can have hustle culture 5 days a week, but make sure you're getting healthy, getting with the Lord, having genuine Sabbath where you are praying, you are in the Word, you are journaling and trying to make sure like you mentally are like good. Like, dude, private equity is tough. Like seriously, I bought a company for $200,000 and it was like, I literally just lost $200,000. That one company I told you about. And so you can really quickly lose a lot of money. And that's why you do morning huddles. We did a huddle Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, not just once a week, because wholesale is changing daily. Problems are happening daily. Title's coming with something new. And so we had huddles 3 times a week. The return on investment from buying part of that title company, so much better than any rental property I've ever owned. Realizing that rentals are great for appreciation and all this stuff, great long-term play. But if you were like, you know how many people come to me like, man, I want to replace my cash flow. I hate my job. I want to quit my job. Help me buy rentals. I'm like, dude, no, you need to go buy companies. The return on investment in buying companies in terms of cash, like cash flow immediately, so much better.
How do you find those opportunities?
Oh man, you're asking really good questions.
Hey, what's going on guys? It's Benjamin, CEO and founder here at Bolt Deals. And today I am joined with one of my clients, Chris Henze from Arise Capital. Chris, how you doing today?
Ben, I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here in Austin with you.
Thank you for driving. I know you're from Dallas, is that right?
Yeah, Fort Worth, DFW, whatever you want to call it.
Have you been there all your life?
Yeah, I grew up in Dallas.
Awesome. So on this podcast, what we talk about is how we scale wholesalers to 100K a month in profit. And you are obviously one of our like OG clients, one of my favorite clients I've ever worked with. No offense to our other clients, obviously. So I sort of want to hear about your journey of how you got into real estate and what you're doing now in addition to real estate as a whole. So what is it that you do?
Yeah, so now I run Arise Capital. I'm the owner, founder, CEO of Arise Capital, and we are actually focused on hard money lending now. So I actually don't wholesale anymore. And I know we're going to talk a lot about wholesaling because for so long that was my journey, my story. I think I wholesaled for 5 or 6 years before making the jump into lending. And so, you know, my wife and I, we actually lived in Morocco for a time after we graduated from college. And when we got back from Morocco, I worked for a little boutique real estate shop in Fort Worth. And I had no money. We were pregnant with our first kid. And I was like, I got to get a deal done quick. I just got my real estate license. And I kid you not, I was like, I don't know if I can spend the time trying to find real estate clients. Like it takes so long to source them through your sphere to either buy or list a house. I was like, I need cash quick. And one of the founders of that company was like, man, you should go wholesale. I'm like, the heck is wholesaling? Never heard of it in my life. He goes, well, you know, you can do it a lot of different ways, but just go knock on doors and see if people will sell you their house. Get under contract and you sell it to a flipper. I'm like, you're full of crap. What are you talking about?
Okay.
And so that night, and gosh, this was February of 2018, I stayed up all night watching videos on wholesaling for the first time. I was like, I'm going to give this a go. And so that's how I got into wholesaling actually was the owner of this little boutique real estate shop was like, you should wholesale if you want cash quicker than trying to become a realtor.
Did you work for this guy, or how did you meet this guy? How did you come across him?
Yeah, I worked for him. I was a 1099 contractor.
Okay.
I was a real estate agent. And I was just like, dude, tell me how to get cash quicker than trying to become a realtor.
Okay.
And so,
So that's how you found out about wholesaling, and then did you end up working for him a bit, or did you start your own company after?
so I worked for that company for 18 months and actually helped develop kind of their off market wholesale flipping. They were already flipping a lot before me, so I can't say I helped develop that. I helped develop the wholesale side for them. And that was a lot of fun. But do you know how I started? Because, we're going to talk a lot about marketing and how there's so many better ways to do. I'm about to tell you. I door knocked 100 doors a day.
Wow.
I literally would go walking neighborhoods and door knocking.
How did you find neighborhoods to door knock? You just pull on maps, or what'd you do?
Yeah, I just pull up maps. I knew Fort Worth really well. What I would do before is I would actually go into the MLS. I would pull just comps of like 3.2s, 4.2s, 4.3s, and I would have written on my phone, hey, a 3.2 typical price per square foot for ARV is this. For 4.2, it's this. So I was knocking on a door. I would just pull up the house while I was at the door. And I would just know the ARV right there on the spot because I'd pulled up just generalization of neighborhoods. And so I'd do that every morning. And I would just, well, not every morning because it would take me a couple weeks to walk each neighborhood, but I would like hit the whole neighborhood and I would just find houses that looked distressed. I just knocked on them all.
So you knocked on them. So walk us through that process. How did you convert somebody that opened the door and said, yes, I'm open to an offer, to a closed deal?
I'll tell you about my first one ever.
Let's hear it.
So 45 days into door knocking, I'm in this neighborhood. I knock on the door, guy comes out. Most of the time I get cussed out or door slammed in my face. Like, what are you doing? I'm not selling you my house right here on the street. I was like, all right. And guy comes out, dude, this smell comes out of the house and it's horrendous. I'm like, I've got a winner here.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just
Yeah.
bad. And I was like, hey, I'm just out here door knocking. I'm an investor and I work with investors. Like I'm here to either buy a house or sell a house to a flipper. Are you interested in selling your house today? He was like, actually, yeah, we were under contract and the guy backed out and walks me through the story. And I was like, okay. Well, the guy backed out because it was just too high. I was like, if I can come in at this number, I'll get this done for you. He was like, let me talk to my mom. So came back the next day, dude was ready to sign paperwork. So I got my first contract signed just like that, just because they were already under contract, lost the deal. And I just was so honest with them, like, well, you lost it because, like, dude, your house is not worth this. I ended up making $24K on that wholesale deal.
Wow. And this was still working for that guy that you met? Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So when you say you built out the off-market side of their company, what does that mean specifically?
So I went and essentially hired a bunch of salespeople and helped just develop ideas. I wasn't doing any other marketing other than cold calling and door knocking at the time. They didn't really want to spend money. I think we spent a little bit on Facebook ads trying. We didn't really spend much on PPC. We didn't really spend much anywhere other than buying lists. And so we hired at one point with like 12 salespeople I oversaw for them that all we would do is cold call and door knock. That's all we did.
Was this your first time building some sort of sales team? Because I know one of the challenges that many wholesalers go into is that it's their first time hiring people because typically it's their first business.
Yep.
But hiring a VA to do your admin work versus hiring salespeople to close deals for you is two completely different ball games.
Yeah, hiring people is actually probably one of the hardest things of owning a business. Out of those 12 people we hired, do you know how long we kept all 12 of those?
How long?
Probably an average of 2 months each.
Why do you think turnover is so high for salespeople?
Man, great question. Multiple different things. One, a lot of people will think, well, crap, I just learned this in 2 months. Why am I giving up 80% of the deal when I can just go do this on my own? So they go off and try to do it on their own. Mm-hmm. Two, work ethic. If you're not actually hiring people who are built for sales, they're never going to last because they get burnt out so quickly. Mm. And I know we'll talk more about hiring and stuff here soon, but like if I hired someone who's really good at operations but not a salesperson, dude, they're gonna hate their life so fast. One girl I actually hired, she was terrible at sales, sweetest girl ever, and I thought because she was sweet she'd be good at sales, she could talk people into stuff. No, dude, she literally like had such guilt and shame every day trying to like talk people into selling their house. And so a lot of it's personality is why it like, because the turnover is so high, wholesale companies then say, you know what, I'm going to keep hiring quickly just to keep filling that spot. Dude, you got to hire slow. People in this world hire so fast, and it very rarely works out that way.
Building a sales team obviously comes down to the person and the avatar that you're speaking to, because not only do you have to sell them not only is a salesperson selling to you why they should come work for you, but you also have to sell as to why they should work for you as well. So it goes both ways, I guess. I think I mixed that up. But what are you looking for? What are some of the traits that make a good salesperson from your experience?
Oh man, you're asking really good questions. Okay, have you ever heard of Culture Index?
I have.
Okay, so
what is that for those that don't know?
Okay, so Culture Index, you know, for all you guys out there, you've probably heard of Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, all these different like what are they called? Just not tests.
They're like
personality tests. Yeah. Culture Index is like a personality test, but for work. It is designed to help you put the right person in the right seat. It's super expensive, but it's well worth it, because you could have the right person in the wrong seat. It's never going to work. You could have wrong person, right seat, still won't work in your organization because you're going to keep butting heads. And so you want to get the right person in the right seat. And that's why it takes a long time to find the right person. And, you know, so character traits off Culture Index, because that's what we use. You want someone who's a go-getter, typically doesn't follow systems and processes well, which is really funny because like my CEO hates it because she'll set all these systems and processes for our salesperson to follow. Well, I actually hope they suck at it, because usually salespeople who are really good at operations are bad salespeople. So it's like a really weird thing, right? So I want people who suck at operations, who are just going to burn blaze trails wherever they go, and who are just ready to like take on the world. The guys who are waking up at 5 a.m., going to the gym, just full of energy and life, want to beat you at anything. I actually like the guys who come into the office and are like, Chris, I could take your job. I could beat you. Like, I could do this. Like, those are the kind of guys you want.
Why do you want those people? Because somebody might be watching this who's never hired a sales rep before. It's like, oh, aren't they egotistical? Aren't sales rep not supposed, or should I hire sales reps that aren't egotistical?
I haven't found a ton of really good salespeople that don't have a little bit of edge like that, because they want to win. If they think they can beat you and you're the owner of the company, chances are they're going to go beat an owner of a house. You know what I mean? Like, they want to win. You have to have winners. Mm-hmm. And if someone doesn't have that like edge to them and doesn't want to win that way, there's probably a really good spot for them, but it may not be sales.
I agree with you, because that's one thing I've noticed as well, because when it comes to sales people, you either find somebody that's good at selling, or you find somebody that's good at admin work, also known as the operations. So that is something that I've also stressed to our clients as well. It's like, would you rather hire a closer, hire an acquisition manager that is good at closing deals, making money, or somebody that can put in their notes on time properly? And typically it's the first one, but when it comes to actually putting in the notes, you're like, damn it sucks. Yeah. So you mentioned the Culture Index, personality test, but that's sort of the applicant interviewing process. How do you actually find salespeople that are worth hiring?
Dude, one of the hardest things ever. I'm not going to lie to you. It's like a revolving door. And recently where we found success is LinkedIn and word of mouth. We used to try Indeed. We used to try, even word of mouth can get hard, because you're like, the person who connected you, you want to make them feel good. And like, yeah, I want to hire this guy. Like, you connected us, but at the same time, sometimes it just doesn't work that way. LinkedIn is a fantastic place. We've had a lot of success there recently.
Can you walk us through that process when it comes to finding applicants for LinkedIn, your process at least?
Honestly, it's really easy. On LinkedIn, there's like a whole like job function. If you click it and you can go to manage job ads, you create an ad, be as honest and truthful as possible on it. Build out exactly what they're going to do day to day. And then LinkedIn, like once you post it, I think we spend an average like $6 a day on LinkedIn for each job ad we post. I mean, we did that for one of our account execs in our lending company, and within like 4 days, we had 19 applicants. It's pretty cool, actually. And then like auto uploads their resumes. It matches skills. That's the other thing too, is LinkedIn has like skill matching. So you can put like 5 skills you need to have for this particular job function. And it will say like, hey, based on their profile, they're 1 out of 5 or 2 out of 5. And if it matches well, it actually will give you like a little recommendation, like, hey, you should look at this person, pull up the resume, reach out to them. And we've had a lot of success with that.
So that's the applicant generation. You walked us through the preliminary interviewing of how you make them go through personality tests. But walk us through your like next step of the interviewing process. Are you doing group interviews? Are you doing one-on-one interviews? What are you looking for? What are some of the questions you're asking them on that during that interviewing process?
We never do group interviews. I know people like those. I don't. I want to get to know the person. I want to know why, like what stood out to them about our company. Like why did they click apply on Arise Capital?
What is the right versus wrong answer on that initial interview?
I don't think I'm looking for a right or wrong answer. I want to know the right answer to me is that they looked up our company. They like, I talked to a lot of people. I actually talked to one guy, kid you not, he goes, oh, I hired a VA and they're just auto applying to like everything. And I was like, okay, because I was like, hey, why did you choose to click the link for Rise Capital and click apply? He goes, to be honest, I don't even remember your company. I've been applying to like 30 a day and I have a VA assistant doing it. I want to know they looked us up because if I had an interview today, a guy out of Duke University wants to intern with us this summer. And my first question is, why Rise Capital? Why'd you reach out to me? Because he emailed me actually. Why? And he was like, well, I like these values that you state. I like that you're doing these things in capital markets. I like that you're lending. I want to get into real estate finance. Like he knew about our company.
Why do you feel like that's so important?
It shows they care. They care about their life. They care about the job they're going to have. Because how many times, I don't know about you, but someone that won't research your company or can't tell you anything about your company comes in and then they leave 2 weeks later because like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was.
Yep. Do you feel like if they leave early in 2 weeks, that was a error on the recruiting side or the onboarding aspect after you hire them?
Both.
Okay. So how do we fix that, right? How do you prevent mishires?
So I'm going to tell you a secret right now. Hiring has been one of my weakest things because I believe the best in people and trust. I hired a killer COO. She's developed interview questions. She's developed our onboarding process. She's developed a lot of stuff. Dude, without her, I'd still just be like a revolving door, if I'm being honest.
So if you say you mentioned hiring a COO, so it sounds like you're more the visionary as opposed to being an integrator. Is that correct?
Dude, I'm the worst integrator operations person in this room.
Well, you haven't seen my stuff, but anyways, Aaron's pretty good. So how do you find that match, that yin versus yang? Since you're the visionary, how do you find an integrator if that's not your area of expertise?
Trial and error. It took me 3 integrators previous. I actually tried to get her to a year before I did, and then she chose another company and then came back after a year. I was like, oh, now you're coming back, huh? To be honest, because I'm so bad at it, it was trial and error. I did do culture index. I did all these things, but operations to me is tricky because someone can be really good at operations and like follow a set checklist, but an integrator can create the checklist and follow it and implement it to your people. There's a difference between an operations manager and an integrator. And I didn't know that at first.
What is the difference?
An operations manager is still going to look to me to create the process and they'll follow it to a T. An integrator will create the process and implement it across your entire organization and hold people accountable.
You mentioned you didn't have the best success with 2 or 3 integrators in the past. So with that said, what are some of the mistakes that you made with them that help you finally find the person that you have right now?
Lack of communication was one of the biggest things. I just expected them when I said, hey, you're going to be the integrator in our organization. Come do X, Y, Z. I left it at that. I didn't set parameters of like, hey, this is what I expected. Because again, I thought they were an integrator. And so I thought they were going to come in and tell me what to do day to day, right? I'm going to dream up in the clouds. You're going to implement what I'm dreaming up or tell me no, whatever is better. And because they were more operational manager mindset, they were still looking every day for me to guide what was going on instead of just the strategy and dreaming and vision. I like to call it visionary, engineering your vision, but it's a great book, by the way, you should read. It's called Visioneering.
Who's it by?
Andy Stanley. Probably one of the most transformational books for me on like how to engineer your vision and take it to the world. So,
do you happen to remember some of the takeaways and lessons you got from that book?
Biggest one that's actually been kind of coming back to me recently is don't tell people what you're building. Like build in secret, because, and I don't know if you've experienced this, but like when you're starting your company or you're doing something really cool, all you want to do is tell people. You want to go tell Aaron, you want to go tell your neighbors, all these people. But a lot of times you get pushback. People will start saying, well, what's your backup? Or what's this? Or what's that? What's this? And in the book, it actually talks about letting God develop the vision inside of you while you're building. And then when it's time, people just know. It's really fascinating.
Are you a religious person?
Yes.
Do you feel like I'd say having faith in a greater power is important to success as an entrepreneur?
For me, yes. But if you look at the world, no. Because there's a lot of very successful people that don't believe in a higher power. And so can I directly correlate my faith in Jesus to success? For me, it's my purpose, right? I don't know what those people's purpose is that get really successful and don't have faith. Like what will, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I do what I do because of my faith and my family and what I want to do. So to answer your question, yes, for me, but for other people, again, you can't correlate the two because there are very successful people who don't believe in that.
Gotcha, that makes sense. I want to take a step back and talk about the integrator part, right? Of you hiring an integrator. And the reason why is because somebody's going to be watching this, doing 3, 4, maybe even 5 deals a month, and they're like, I think I need an integrator. They're doing maybe $100K a month in revenue in their wholesale business. So my question for you is like, when do you feel like is the right time to hire an integrator or a COO or an operations manager?
Man, there's this chart. I'm going to look up the name of it, and I'm sorry for you podcast listeners. I'm not going to be able to tell you right now. We'll post it, I guess. There's a chart that actually shows what it's like going from 0 to 1 million, 1 million to 5 million, 5 million to 10 million, and kind of the highs and the troughs of it. Most people will get to 1 million, and that's when they start hiring like crazy. And they probably should, because going from 1 million to 5 million is actually probably one of the hardest jumps you can make in the entrepreneurial journey. Because at 1 million, you're big enough to have made a dent in society, but you have to start spending a lot if you want to make the jump to 5 million. You need the infrastructure, you need systems, processes, personnel. And so I would say you need to be doing at least 1 million a year, because integrators aren't cheap. You're going to spend 100K a year for a good one. If you get someone for 50K, please let me know where you find that.
That performs.
Sorry, Sam, I'm just kidding. You're not going anywhere. But that performs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think once you hit that 1 million and you're ready to try to you could sit at 1 million, 2 million, 3 million for a while, but like to make the jump to 5 million, you have to be ready to spend money. And once you're ready mentally to be like, okay, it's going to hurt a little, because it's actually one of the trough seasons of business is going from maybe 3 to 5 million. But you've got to go down a little bit. You've got to spend the money in order to get to the next level. So I would say once you're mentally ready for that.
Got it. What is your thought on giving up equity to your C-suite?
You can only give equity once.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah. It is so hard if something goes south to get your equity back that you better know for darn sure that person deserves equity and is with you in it for the long haul.
When should you bring up the conversation about giving equity to somebody? One of your C-suite, maybe one of your managers, whatever the case may be.
I would say they've got to be with you for a long time. How long? That's got to be up to you and your discernment. But They've got to be producing in whatever role they're in. They've got to be bought in, loyal. And to be honest, I think they need to see a really hard time with you and stick with you. Because if they're not willing to go through a really hard time and stick with you, dude, it's business. You're going to have a hard time. We were just talking about like this year so far has sucked for a lot of people, including us, you know? And it's like, so for like Sam, my COO, she's sticking with me right now. And it's like, hey, we're taking some punches right now. Like we're saying like, hey, maybe you and I don't get paid this month type punches. Are you willing to stick around? And she's like, I'm bought in, I'm in. So someone like that, that's when you start having those conversations, because you're going to have ups and downs. And if someone's not willing to stick with you now in the hard, they're not going to.
You mentioned your COO, Sam, is willing to go to a point where she's not even going to get paid that month because of things not going well, or the company's not profitable, or whatever the case may be. So the question for me is like, how do you find somebody and get them to a point where they're so bought in to where they're going to that extent? Obviously, the goal is to not get to that point, but overall, how do you find somebody, or even communicate, lead them to a point where they're willing to take that hit with you?
I think a lot of just learning and growth. And I'm not saying we're even at that point, but I think, can you create a culture and a purpose within your company that people feel bought in? That people every day come to work and saying, man, I just enjoy working here. There's a greater purpose than just making money. Like, some people just want that. Like, our company is not always about that. Like we do a lot of cool stuff around the world for missions, for people. Like, we build houses in Uganda and Ethiopia. And so it's like, she's bought in because we have purpose beyond just making money. And so who knows if she would give that up, but like, I think she would, because and also she's helped create that culture, because her thing is culture. And so, yeah, I think you got to have purpose beyond just making money. And I think when people feel that purpose and can get behind it, that's when you get those type of people.
Finding those people, like you mentioned, comes down to building a culture. And some people starting out in business believes that culture is woo-woo, beating your chest, Wolf of Wall Street type stuff. So my question for you is, how do you build culture? Like, how would you define culture? More importantly, how would you build it?
I don't know if I'm smart enough to define culture.
What is culture to you?
I'll come back to that in a sec, because I had a thought, but like, I kind of lost that thought in my head. But culture to me is kind of going back to what I said about purpose. Is, why do you wake up every morning? Why do you want to come to work? Why do you get out of bed and go take on the world that's just full of crap? Because let's be real, the world, like, it's hard. It's not designed for us to win necessarily. And so culture to me is someone who can see past that for a common purpose that we want to achieve together, and we want to have fun together. You know what I mean? And so yeah, I don't remember the first part of your question to that, but that's how I would define culture, is like, what makes you get out of bed, and can you do that collectively with a group of people?
What is that for you? What gets you out of bed?
So for us, we actually really want to help people. So that's why my wife and I started all these companies. At one point we had a real estate brokerage, wholesale company, mortgage brokerage. At one point we had a logistics company. We've really we learned to focus. We weren't very good at focusing. But we started all that to actually help people around the world. Again, building houses in Uganda and Ethiopia, and doing some of the stuff we do in the Middle East with providing sustainability for people. And so, can people rally around that? Hey, some of our profit is not going to stay with us because we want to actually bless people, like in our community around the world, who may need it more than us. And so,
you mentioned working with your wife in the business. So does she work in the business with you?
Not anymore. She did at the beginning.
When you guys did that, how did you guys navigate or separate business time versus family time?
We didn't, and that caused a lot of fights. And she always, it was hard for me to turn off work at the beginning. And to this day, it's still a tension point, but we're a lot better. We've been married for 10 years now. And so, we're a lot better at communicating through that. But I have to put my phone in Do Not Disturb when I go home. Obviously, rules of like no phones at the dinner table. I'm still not 100% at that, but I'm getting there.
Yeah.
And so you have to learn to communicate really well. Like you can't get mad at each other. Like if she's like, hey, I thought we agreed on this, I can't just snap back and be like, yeah, well, I got to do this deal and this, or we're going to lose money, blah, blah, blah. Like, no, like the money will be okay. Be with your kids. Like they're only this little for so long. And so I had to learn that it was going to be okay if I didn't answer an email or a text or a call right then and there. And it took a lot of learning for me to do that. So
Learning as in just more reps of it, or how do you gain that skill?
More reps and a mindset shift. I was going through this course with a guy who mentors me about Sabbath. I used to never Sabbath, which is like take a day off and like genuinely rest. Like I'm not saying like watch TV, rest. I'm saying like meditate, read your Bible, journal, like genuinely rest. And he called me out one day. He's like, when's the last time you had a Sabbath? Cause I was like losing my mind. And he was like, if you haven't Sabbath, like when was the last time? I said, man, it's been months since I have taken a day where I genuinely rested. And he goes, chances are if you are taking it that seriously that you can't even take a day to meditate, then one, you're not trusting the Lord enough. And two, what was the exact words he said? He was just like, gosh, I got to remember the phrase, but essentially said you're taking it too seriously in that like, you didn't have the trust that you should, and that everything would just be okay. Can you actually be healthier if you took a day? You'd probably produce more if you actually took a day and meditated. I took life too seriously in that sense. And so the mindset shift of like, if I took a day off, it's okay. I'm not gonna, like, the business isn't going anywhere. Like the business doesn't rule my life.
What are some other mindset shifts that you've had throughout your time in business?
A lot of them.
What are the ones that have impacted you the most, that made you who you are today?
I used to call it something different. I'm not going to say it, but one of my friends helped me redefine the word, but loving grit. There's a way not to let people mistake your kindness for weakness. Cause I used to let people in business like push me around just because I was like, I'm not going to offend people. I'm not going to make people mad. Like kind of like the Bible, you'll turn the other cheek type of thing. But there's a way to take care of your family. There's a way to defend yourself and help yourself without being like a dick to everyone around you. You know what I mean? And so I call it loving grit, like being gritty enough to do what you need to do, but also not like just be an absolute a-hole to everyone.
Gotcha. You mentioned working and how it's important to take time off, also like you referred to as Sabbath day. So what is your opinion, or what would you tell somebody that believes in hustle culture, right? They're working 7 days a week because they don't believe that, if they believe that if they don't work 7 days a week, they're not going to achieve success or whatever that means to them.
Yeah, I mean, I had hustle culture, that quote unquote hustle culture. And I think it's okay to have that. But I actually would argue, seeing what I've done now, that you're actually more productive in 6 days with 1 day rest, or 5 days with 2 days, whatever you need, than you are with 7 days. Dude, burnout's real. Like most people can't sustain 7 day week hustle culture forever. It's just not, it's not realistic. Maybe for you. I don't know. We talked about you earlier, how you don't, but you meditate. You told me you meditate.
Not anymore now.
Not anymore now. It's just gone. Even though you said like 2 days ago you were doing it.
No, not 2 days. I don't meditate. I pray, but I don't meditate.
There you go. Yeah, but like praying, like taking that time, you actually become more productive in those 5 or 6 days. I fully believe that. And so you can have hustle culture 5 days a week, but make sure you're getting healthy, getting with the Lord, having genuine Sabbath where you are praying, you are in the Word, you are journaling, and trying to make sure like you mentally are like good.
You mentioned burnout. Have you encountered burnout, and what did you learn from that?
Yeah, I've encountered burnout, especially when times are hard. I feel like I have to fix things right now. And so I run so hard that that's when I usually get rid of my Sabbath days. If like January this year was really hard for us. Like we had a really bad month. And so to me, I'm like, crap, I got to fix everything. I got to fix revenues. I got to fix this system, this process, because sales aren't working or this or that. And so when I experience burnout, I'm really irritable, especially with my kids. I start yelling at them. I'm like, gosh, dang it, I'm the worst dad ever. And it's not until I actually take a Sabbath and I get in the Word and get right with the Lord that it usually fixes. Because burnout, people think burnout's like a mental break. Sometimes it manifests as that, but a lot of times it's just severe irritability, lack of sleep, just crazy anxiety. People call it like brain fog. Like if you're at work, you think you're working, but you're just kind of like, did I get anything done today? Like, I'm just like, I feel like I'm just waiting on everybody. Like you're actually less productive, even though you are at work thinking you're working. And so, yeah, I've experienced it. But I had to learn again, the whole mindset shift of like, when you are experiencing burnout, it's actually probably better to take a day off and not try to fix it right there, right then, you know?
Absolutely. Let's go back to the wholesaling.
Okay.
Right. You worked for this guy. Why did you leave him after you built his sales team and obviously contributed a good amount to his growth?
So one, I never got put on salary, but I was expected to act like a W-2 employee.
You what salary?
I was not a W-2 salaried employee.
Okay.
But I was expected to act like one.
Oh, okay.
They told me I could not flip my own properties or buy my own rentals, and I had to put company first, even though I was a 1099 contractor.
Okay.
So I'm sitting here making, a fraction of all the deals and told I can't do my own stuff, which is technically legal, but I respected them a lot. So I just never did it. And then stuff just kind of blew up when I actually did buy my first rental and just a bunch of other stuff too that we won't go into. But that was when I was like, you know what? If I'm not going to become a W-2, if I'm not going to get a higher percentage of stuff, if I'm being told I can't do stuff even though I'm not a W-2 employee, I should probably just go create my own companies where I'm doing this.
Walk us through that. How did you build and scale a wholesaling company?
Oh, man. So I actually started a real estate brokerage alongside the wholesale company. So I did both at the same time, which was really good, but also hard. I still actually own that real estate brokerage to this day. I still have like 15 agents hang their license with me. Pretty cool. But the wholesale company, I kept doing what I was doing. I just door knocked, cold called. And then I found two people who were wanting to do it with me that I brought them on like within the first week or two of starting the wholesale company. Starting a wholesale company is super easy. That's why they're not sellable. Like you just go start an LLC and start talking to people. Done. It's so easy. So that's all I did. And I just kept doing what I was already doing, just under my own brand now. Made a logo, got two people on, and we just picked up where we left off 2 weeks prior.
These two people, were they acquisition managers? Were they partners? Who were they?
They didn't have titles at the beginning because I didn't know what I was doing. And so they were partners, acquisition managers, dispo agents, all of the above, all at the same time. We all just kind of did it together. I owned the company and I put them on splits, higher splits than I was on before at the previous company.
What is the split?
Like commission split. And so, but I also told them that they could go buy their own rentals. They could buy deals like, like normal stuff, 1099 contractors. So, yeah, so it took a while to scale because, again, even though I'd watched videos, I'd known that there's other marketing methods. I still thought the best way to do this was door knock and cold call ourselves because it was so cost efficient. Like we were spending like no money, but we couldn't ever get past 1 to 2 deals a month because you can only door knock so much and call so much. So then we, through our research, like, okay, let's add some VA callers. So did the whole Philippine. Let's go get 3 callers for $2 an hour. Quickly realized if you're not training them and spending time with them, it's awful. Buying data too, you don't realize how expensive data is because those callers will get through thousands of points of data. And so you're like, crap, I'm spending $5,000 a month now just on data. And I've got these callers who aren't really giving us leads and I'm spending more time fighting them over dumb stuff than anything else.
Hurricanes, tsunamis,
yeah, whatever it is. Then you're like, is this even like working? Because I can't even understand them. Like, are these people understanding them that they're trying to get leads for? And so fired them. Then I actually did a deal with a new Western agent. He was a good buddy of mine, and I had sold a ton of deals to him. He was like, hey, I'll help fund some of your stuff, but you have to run all of your dispo through New Western. And I was like, I'll do that because it takes some of my cost away. We're selling to you guys anyways. Sure, I'll do this. And so they started funneling some cash into us, and we started texting, got better callers, not from the Philippines, from Egypt this time. And we started some traction there. We're getting like 3 to 4 deals a month now. But the problem with that is if you have not great acquisitions managers and you have one bad month, dude, you just blew 20K. And you're like, how are you recovering from this? Especially if you didn't have a lot of cash reserves. And so I actually lost a few acquisitions managers there because I was starting to feel more pressure because now we're spending more money, right? I was like, we have to be performing. And there's a few months you're not performing. I was like, okay, this isn't working. So I stopped that. I went back to door knocking and cold calling myself, got a new set of acquisitions managers in. And that was about the time.
Where did you find these acquisition managers?
All word of mouth. All word of mouth. I didn't put any ads out. It was all just people who knew me, knew the people with me, and that wanted to work. So I was not vetting them at this point. I had no like structure for vetting people coming into our organization. Again, visionary. I didn't have an integrator, didn't have ops people. I'm just like, let's hire everyone. We're going to figure this out. Terrible idea. And a lot of wholesalers do that, by the way, because they think the more acquisitions managers I have, the more successful I be.
Were you always a good leader?
No. You have to learn a lot about leadership.
What have you learned about leadership?
I mean, we're going to be here for like 7 hours.
That's okay. Aaron's got time.
Aaron wants to go have steak.
Nah, we're not having steak tonight.
I know.
It's tomorrow. If you stay tonight, we would, but I know you can't.
One of the first things I had to learn, my wife used to tell me this, that I would act like I was already 50 years old and well established in business. And that's a problem. That means I wasn't doing the things that I expected my employees to do. So while yes, I used to door knock, cold call, I used to do all that, when I hired someone, I expected them to just pick up the slack for me. And she'd be like, why are you acting like you've already made it? Just because you have some employees that are doing some stuff, you haven't made it. And so first thing I learned was get back in the trenches with my team, lead by example, just be a servant leader too. Like when someone's struggling, help them. Don't be like, oh, I deserve the full commission and I had to help you. No, like bless your people, serve them, make them feel at home and welcome. That was the first thing. Don't act like you've made it because you've probably never made it. And as a leader, the moment you start acting like you've made it, you're done for. 2 was the whole purpose and culture thing. My purpose and culture before was so hustle culture. I thought people would just come with me on it. Dude, do you know how many people I left in the dust and that left because like I just can't keep up?
How many?
A lot. I could not tell you. But you burn bridges that way because you're like, I'm just going to run as hard as I can, as fast as I can towards this one goal that I can see as a visionary. Dude, your employees can't see where you want to go, especially if you're not telling them daily. Like, hey guys, this is where I see our company going. Hey, this is the culture I want. This is the vision I have for all of us and for our families and for this. I was just running for it. And people are like, what are we doing? And so then I learned how to communicate vision. So have staff meetings, have emails, have ways to communicate with your people where you see not only yourself and your company, but them and their families and their futures.
Why is it so important to loop them in and talk about their goals, their visions for not only them personally, but professionally as well?
Well, if you don't give them anything to strive for, they're going to feel burnout. They're going to feel stuck. They're going to feel useless. You have to give them something to want to strive for. And not something they need to strive for, something they want to strive for. Dude, they don't need to do anything. They're employees. They can go get another job tomorrow if they wanted. You have to create a vision that they also want to achieve. if you can't do that and you don't communicate that to them, because I could envision someone's future for him because I'm a visionary. Like Aaron's been here for 2 weeks. I could tell him what he's doing in 5 years, but if I don't, or I could envision it for him, but if I don't tell him what he's doing in 5 years, the dude's going to leave in a month. You know what I mean? And so like you just hired this guy. You better be telling him daily how you can envision his future alongside of your company. If not, he's going to go do all this stuff for me. Just kidding.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't be pushed by people.
Nah, dude, I live too far. He's not coming to Fort Worth.
Okay, so we talked about leadership. We talked about sales. What happened with this first wholesaling company? What happened to it?
So after I lost a lot of my acquisitions people, I had like one left. Yeah, I think I had one left two left. I don't remember. That's actually when I reached out to Carlos Reyes. And I was like, I'm stuck doing this, right? Like we get really good, then we burn out. We get really good, then we burn out. How do we like just create some consistency? And so I realized there were some mindset things, there were some marketing things, there were some just overall things I needed to learn in order to get more steady. And so that's when I reached out to the All-In guys, Carlos, Sal, and Adrian. And I was like, I just need help. Like I understand the concepts of wholesaling. I understand the concepts of business. But so now I reached out to them. I had the mortgage brokerage, had a real estate brokerage, and had this wholesale business. I've got all these businesses and all just seem stagnant. And so I was like, how do you guys scale and scale in a way that stays in an upward trajectory? And so, yeah, I joined their group and their mastermind, or I got to go do masterminds with them, and I spent a lot of time with them in Arizona and San Diego. And yeah, I learned a lot about business from them and just learned a lot about that. But it was then I was ready to be like, okay, I got to start spending on marketing. This whole door knocking thing and hiring Filipinos it's just not going to work. And so instead of just shooting for like one, like PPC, you could spend so much on PPC, Google Ads. I was like, what if I had 5 things that were sustainable? Like I could spend sustainably in marketing. That way there's different avenues of marketing coming in. And here's the things that are working for those guys and for other people that we were masterminding with. And that's what I implemented. Mm-hmm. And within the first month, I hit like 90K. I was like, it was like 96,000 actually.
Nice.
I was like, okay, this works. And I'm not just putting all my eggs in one basket. That was kind of the key. Was marketing is more of it really is a strategy. I'm terrible at marketing, which is why I really appreciate you, because I couldn't see the strategy behind having multiple avenues of marketing. I thought if one was working, dump all the money into it. When really, like, yeah, if one's working really well, yeah, up your spend there a little bit, but you should still have 5, 6 other avenues of marketing going, because they're going to cycle. That's just the nature of marketing.
Yep.
And I did not learn that until then. So that's when it really started. And then I had some other people reach out to me, Mick and his friend Trey. I've actually met Mick through my uncle. He reached out and he was working for an insurance company and was like, property management company. Ended up bringing them on and a couple other people. And that's when we met. And because I had started spending more in marketing, but I didn't have someone to actually run like Facebook ads, PPC. So we interviewed a bunch of people and you were one of them.
Can I ask like a few of the other agencies that you interviewed and why you didn't decide to move forward with them?
Honestly, I don't know if there's like any other answer other than you can just kind of tell when someone's telling you the truth. Because you can ask questions. We ask all the same questions like, well, how do you know this? How do you know how to get around special ad agencies? How do you know how this works? Like you ask all the normal things. And some people just wait over promise. Does that make sense?
It does.
They're like, hey, dude, you're going to crush it with us. We're going to do this together. You can just kind of feel like oversold. So that's one. If someone tries to oversell me on it, I'm automatically out because I'm like, you're full of it. 2, if someone tries to sell me too much products, like If someone would have, I think we had, I don't know who it was, but someone was like, hey, we'll do Facebook ads, PPC, we'll also run your mailers, and we're going to do this. I'm like, you just want my money. I like the people who, and this is where you came in, you were like, we're just going to run Facebook ads. Let's get comfortable. Then we'll add PPC. And here are the steps of how it's going to work. It's a trust thing. You actually had a plan, a method, and you didn't try to oversell me. Everyone else was just like, let's freaking crush it. You're going to get to 100K and this and this and this. And it never happens.
I actually remember that conversation very well.
Yeah.
It was me and your former business partner, Cole, and I was terrified of him.
Of Cole?
Yeah. He egoed
you
the
were?
entire call.
I remember that.
He egoed me the entire call. He was drilling me question by question by question. So, and I remember on that call, you were the ultimate decision maker. So my question for you is, why did you choose us? Like, what was it that we did that stood out? Or what did I do that stood out so I know what to do more of?
Okay, you ready for this? And I remember this now. It was the trust thing. Like, that was huge. You actually had a plan and everything. I remember going to Cole after, and I was like, dude, that 17-year-old kid handled your crap better than anyone. Because a lot of people, like, kind of buckle under pressure, especially, like, Cole. Cole had just gotten off that Netflix show, too, so people were like, oh, this guy's a celebrity. And, dude, he grilled you. I remember that now. Yes, and you did so well with it. You stuck to your plan. You knew your stuff. Oh my gosh. I remember literally turning to Cole and goes, no 17-year-old kid would ever be able to do that. And you did it.
I appreciate that.
I was not expecting him to do that, by the way.
I remember getting off that call and I'm like, okay, if I bring you guys on as clients, if you guys decided to work with me, I know you guys would knock it out of the park. No question about it. But the issue is I was nervous because if I was working with Cole and he was grilling me like that 24/7.
Oh, it's not sustainable.
Yeah. That's the perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
So I sort of want to dive into talk about the experience and your guys' ability to scale with us.
Yeah.
So let's start with what you remember.
Yeah. So what I remember was like month one having 18 deals on the board because of like just Facebook ads, and we weren't spending much in PPC yet. I think we ultimately ended up doing both at the same time. We didn't just settle for one, even though you recommended just doing Facebook ads. Me and Cole were like, nah, we're going to do both of these. Yeah, we jumped really fast because the leads you guys were providing were all closable. And we were even watching your other guy just a second ago. He's like every 1 in 4. I think we were a very similar statistic of that, which is incredible. There's not many marketing avenues where you're signing a contract every 4 leads. Like if you're doing 1 to 10, you're like knocking it out of the park, top 1% in the country, especially in wholesaling. Dude, we were cruising contracts. It was a lot of fun.
Out of that 18 deals, do you have a rough idea of how much in revenue or profit that was off the top of your head?
I do, because it kind of sucked. We didn't close it all, but we closed a lot of it. But I remember looking at Sang, who's our dispo manager at the time. Sang's still with me in loans now. I remember looking at Sang and go, dude, do you have a life right now? Because I remember the board, it showed $347,000 of revenue and like potential profit. Now, again, we didn't close all of that. I don't remember exactly where we ended up, but it was a lot. Like one deal alone was supposed to be 100K. We ended up doing 75 because the buyer was an idiot and a lot of crap happened. I actually had to send a demand letter on that one. I kid you not, because they didn't close on time and we worked it out, but we lost 25K. But like one deal alone was 75K out of California.
So that was awesome, man. I remember that deal because Cole, because I actually came to your guys' office. I joined your guys' morning huddle and everything. And I remember Cole saying like, hey, we can't just scratch a deal off the table because there's an error that comes with it. So there's obviously tons of issues that come with wholesaling, title issues, buyers back out, like all this stuff. So my question for you is, when that stuff happens, how do you keep your acquisition managers motivated during stuff like that?
It's honestly just working through it with them, because your acquisitions managers, they can see one thing. They signed a deal, it's not getting sold, whether it's title issues, a dispo issue, whatever it may be. It's just talking through it with them and letting them know like, hey, there are solutions and here's the 3 we're working on. And that's why you do morning huddles. We did a huddle Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, not just once a week, because wholesale is changing daily. Problems are happening daily. Like titles coming with something new. And so we had huddles 3 times a week just to like, we had a spreadsheet with every active deal and we went through every single one 3 times a week just to make sure we were all together, problem solving together. And I think your acquisitions managers feel really supported by that because they know it's being worked on continuously. Not like, if you have a meeting once a week and you have to wait a whole nother week to figure out, am I getting paid? Am I knowing what's happening with this deal? Like, I worked really hard to get that under contract. 3 times a week, talk through it as a team. Here's what we're doing on each single deal.
Gotcha. Believe it or not, many wholesalers that I speak to, they don't run morning huddles. So my question for you is, do you have a framework that somebody can use or implement when it comes to running sales huddles?
Yeah, so Mondays would be a lot longer. We call them like our level 10, where we went through a lot more. And we actually followed something called EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. It's a book. Traction by Gino Wickman. Mm-hmm. So we followed their framework. And, they actually still have a software. I think it's not called Traction Tools anymore. It's called like Bloom Growth. But it'll actually lay out the meetings for you and you can put metrics in there. So we use that. And it would start with everyone has to go around. They call it a segue, but everyone goes around and says something they're grateful for. So you always start with gratitude. Then you go through and you do your rocks. Is everyone on track with hitting? And rocks is like a to-do. And so you set like daily, weekly, and quarterly rocks. And you go through those. Hey, is everyone on track? Then you go through metrics. Are all the numbers lining up? And Bloom Growth actually had it to where it would be green if you hit it and it'd be a red if you didn't. If you had 2 reds in a row weekly, it's a flag and it gets moved to the issue pile. But then also throughout the week, if you had an issue of like, hey, this dude ate my food or whatever, you would put that issue in the issue column. And so after you go through metrics, you go to the issue column and you have to solve it. Whatever's in the issue column, you have to solve. Like, come up with a solution and implement it. And then it was conclude. So Monday mornings would take a while. Then, and we go over every single deal. That was part of the metrics. Is again, we had that spreadsheet. And then Wednesday and Friday was just the deals. We would start with gratitude, what's something you're grateful for, and then go over the deals and like, what do we need to problem solve?
I want to take a step back and talk about the marketing, because in the beginning, we started off with Facebook. And I remember 2 or specifically 3 weeks later, I got a message from Cole. It was either from you or Cole saying you wanted to add on PPC, and you're like, send the invoice, and you paid it instantly. And to me, that's never happened before. So my question for you was like, what got you guys to want to add on PPC when you guys already had Facebook working?
We had talked to a lot of people about PPC actually, and people were telling us that it was crushing. Like, I think one guy told us he was seeing, was it 25? It may have been 25x returns. And so we're sitting here like, the heck, why aren't we spending $30K a month then? Let's go freaking do it. So that's really what got us. We had multiple people tell us they're hitting like 10, 15, 20, 25 return on ad spend. And so we're like, that's a no-brainer. If we have the cash, we're going to make it back. Yeah. So that's why.
So you guys added on PPC. We started at, do you remember the ad spend?
$5K.
We started at $5K. Do you know what we scaled to?
40.
Yep. Why did you guys want to scale it so aggressively to that level? Because somebody's listening to this and they're like, damn, that guy's spending almost $500,000 a year on PPC.
I can't say I don't recommend going to 40K a month, but we actually through a lot of research and again, talking to people like Cole and I were really good at, we'd make decisions based on research and talking to people and what's working instead of just like throwing crap against the wall. And we realized that the 5K was actually a mistake. And you actually told us this, and we didn't, not that we weren't listening, but we verified, I guess, that spending 5K a month in PPC is riskier than spending 40. Multiple people told us that. We're like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, you're spending $500,000 in ad spend. How are you going to tell me that spending that versus 60K is more risky? Well, just the way the bidding process, the AdWord process, the way all that works, was we were never going to get enough leads to even cover the 5K. Whereas if you go up to say 20K, you're going to start outbidding everyone else in there. I didn't understand how the bids work. Well, you remember texting us one day and said, dude, you're outbidding We Buy Houses, you're outbidding Fast Home Offer, you're outbidding all these people. That's when we really started seeing the leads come in because we were the top bid. So I'm not saying go spend 40K if you're listening to this, but it actually is riskier to spend less because you're not going to bid enough to get anything of real value in return. And that's why we chose to do it.
Do you happen to remember the strategy that we switched? Because we actually, I don't know if you remember, but I was reading the case study that I wrote on you guys right before this. We actually scaled down the Facebook side and we scaled up the PPC. So the strategy that we switched to, do you happen to remember, I guess, what the lead to contract rate was for you guys?
That's actually why we switched it, because the leads to contract in Facebook, we were way worse than leads to contracts on PPC. And so we were like, why wouldn't we reverse that? I think leads to Facebook, we were like 1 to 20 or 1 to 25. It was almost more like a cold call lead. It was just more inbound. We didn't have to deal with some Egyptian calling. And then we were like 1 to 8 to 1 to 10 for a while on PPC, Google.
Do you want to know our strategy that we used for you guys?
What?
So many agencies, the reason why, from what I've seen, whenever I audit client PPC accounts, is so there's 3 types of keywords. There's broad match, there's phrase match, and then there's exact match keywords.
Okay.
The phrase match and the exact match are the most expensive ones because you're getting a higher quality lead. But because you guys had a big budget, we were able to run strictly phrase match and exact match while getting a higher quality lead, right?
Interesting.
So that's on the search traffic side, right? But then our landing page was insane. I don't know if you remember. I don't know.
I remember that.
Do you remember it?
Yeah.
So if you don't, I'll break it down because we still run this exact funnel to this day. It's a 3-step landing page funnel. The first one is a survey opt-in. So this is where we ask the 4 main pillars. So their motivation, their timeline, their asking price, are they flexible? Is it listed? Address, name, email, phone number, right? And then on that survey, we actually had for you guys conditional logic. So if they clicked like a question like, no, I'm not looking to sell my property, we would push them out of the funnel. That way they never touch the pixel, right? Yeah. And then, so there's conditional logic. That's what that's called. And then we also had this email verification thing. So if they type in their email wrong, we'll like, hey, did you mean this? And then once they submit that, the second one was property information. Bedroom, bathroom, square footage, how's your AC, how's your basement, things like that. And then after they submit that, it goes to a appointment. So the sellers actually get the opportunity to book appointment directly on Mick's calendar.
Okay.
And Mick would take those.
So you're saying you gave us leads that were pretty much already like
as close to a laydown
but to say, like,
as possible.
Did we do any work? I don't know.
Exactly. And the reason, because I still remember, because I was looking at the campaign right before this. Yeah. You guys were at around a $250 cost per lead.
Which is low. It used to be like $400.
Based off of all those qualifying questions.
It's impressive.
And then we outbid everybody. So you guys were guaranteed to win. That's why I was so excited. And then Facebook, we just turned into a retargeting campaign.
Dude, we like winning. Yeah,
you guys won for sure. We can talk about pixels and stuff in a second. You have something? No? Okay. Okay, so marketing. That's how you guys scale with marketing. And then let's talk about what happened after we worked each other for 6-8 months or something.
Yeah, after that, we had an issue. Yeah, we had a lot of issues that ended up coming up. So all the while this was going, so Cole was doing a lot of the wholesale stuff alongside of Mick and Trey and saying, I was actually building Arise Capital during that time. And so my goal was always to go into hard money lending. And during that time, we just had a couple issues where Cole ended up just texting you to shut everything down without anyone else knowing.
Yep.
And once that happened, it was really hard for us to recover. And so it was actually around that time I decided to slowly start stepping out of wholesaling. and I definitely took a back seat, like Mick and Trey, they were with me still, same was saying. And then, just through a lot of different circumstances and stuff that was really unfortunate. And Mick and Trey ended up going off on their own, starting their own company. And yeah, once I found that out that they had started their own company, I was like, okay, I'm just going to shut it down. And Sang ended up staying with me. And so it was literally like an abrupt stop of just like marketing got turned off in a huge mistake accident that should never have happened. Mick and Trey starting their own company without telling Sang or I, and me and Sang just kind of being like, well, we actually really enjoy loans anyways. We're already building it. We're raising capital. We're doing all these things. And so like pretty abruptly, we just shut wholesaling down. Like when I say abruptly, like literally walked in with Mick and Trey and was just like, hey guys, go do your own thing. I know about your company. Boom, we're done. And literally, I think we had one other closing after that was still in title. Closed it, done. Shut down Podio, shut down everything, just stopped.
What did you learn from that experience?
This goes back to your question earlier about leadership. I was unfocused because I had all of these different things. During that time too, I had a logistics company. That company did $3.3 million in 2023.
Wow.
But I was so unfocused. And when I was unfocused, I had no idea what my employees were doing. They're unhappy, which I thought they were fine. Focus became a really big focus for me. And how to, again, go back to the roots of how to articulate a vision to your people and get them on board, everyone on the same ship moving forward. Without that, you can't run a company. I literally lost the entire wholesale company in a day. Like, let that sink in. We shut down a whole company that was doing so well in a day because I was unfocused as a leader.
How did you learn? You say your focus then became to gain focus. How did you go about that?
We actually ended up letting go of a lot of different people because across all my organizations, okay, this is awful. And it was one of the hardest days of my life, but like my logistics company had 87 people in it. I shut down my logistics company. I had to let go of 87 people in one day. Shut down wholesaling, shut down all these different things in order to go back to what the actual vision was, got whoever was still left after all that and said, here's where we're going, how we're going to do it, and we're going to do it together. One of the hardest few months of stretch of few months I've ever had, because you feel like you're letting all these people down. Again, I had no idea that I had people starting other companies while they're working for me. But the first place you should always look is yourself, to be like, well, why did they do that? What was I doing as a leader that didn't get buy-in from them?
Being unfocused. Okay. What happened after that?
What happened after that is, so I have my account execs for Rise Capital. I still have my real estate brokerage, even though I spend zero time on it. That thing has been chugging along, man. I still have it to this day. I just rebranded it to bring it under the Rise Capital brand. It used to be called Ecclesia Real Estate, which is named after the church.
I remember that.
You remember that?
I remember that.
Dude, I still have it. That thing amazing. Is awesome.
Yeah.
But I just rebranded it to Rise Capital Real Estate. And so I've got, all those agents. I've got my account execs, my COO. And just from a strategy perspective, I'm not doing anything operationally with it, but getting into the private equity world, we bought part of a title company, we bought part of a hedge fund, and we got part of a AI automation company, but it all revolves around making a Rise Capital go forward.
How did you find those companies?
Dude, favor from the Lord. All three of those came to me. I kid you not. I got phone calls on every single one of those.
How do you think they found out about you to reach out to you as an investor to invest in their company?
The title company, I got a call from another broker in Fort Worth who we were just friends and connected. And he said, hey, I got a call from these guys starting this title company. They're looking for like-minded people, believers who just want to be part of this like conglomerate of other brokers in the Fort Worth area, own part of this title company. We all bring our files there. And I thought of you. I was like, dude, I'm honored. So I went through the process. I was like, I'm in. I love that company. There's awesome people in it. The hedge fund, my COO actually knew this one guy because she lived with his parents when she first moved to Fort Worth. And when we started raising capital, we realized how hard raising capital was. He had raised like 350 million for companies before. She's like, I'll set up a meeting. I was like, great. So through meeting and just hitting it off, becoming friends, he actually became a member of our board of advisors. And one day he called me. He's just like, hey, we got to make this move. You want to buy part of the hedge fund I'm the CEO of? I'm like, yeah, I'm in. Bought that. And then the AI company is just a really good friend of mine who was like, hey, I'm doing this. I want you part of it. I'm at the stage of my life that I just want to do business with people I love, care about. I don't want drama, blah, blah, blah. He's like, you want in? I was like, I'm in. So literally all three just phone calls from either connections and just being known around the real estate community because I've been in it since end of 2017 now.
When you got into private equity, did you have mentors to teach you how to do all that stuff? Because it's not easy, I'm assuming.
No, and that's a mistake I made, and I'll tell you how I'm remedying that situation. So there's a fourth company I bought, and that didn't go well, and it's a water off the duck's back. So the fourth company I actually bought was the one failure. I bought a mortgage brokerage, and we tried to absorb it into our mortgage brokerage, and it just didn't go well. We didn't vet it right. So what I'm actually doing, and it's actually coming up soon. So my uncle told me, asked the same question. He's like, man, you're playing in a field that you just know nothing about. My major from A&M was international studies with my emphasis on the Middle East, North Africa. I know nothing about this. And he goes, you're going to get taken for everything one of these times. I'm like, you're not wrong. I don't know enough people. I don't have the best lawyers that understand this world. Like, he's like, yeah, all these people do. And every contract they write to you, there's a way for them to take over your companies. I'm like, fair. So I'm actually getting my MBA from Duke. I'm doing like a hybrid. I'm doing an executive MBA with Duke with a track in venture capital and private equity. I start that this July.
So you're going to university as opposed to hiring a mentor.
Mm-hmm. This time I am. I've hired a lot of mentors, and either way you're going to spend money. But I'm also looking to get more into capital markets because we are raising capital. And so it's kind of twofold for me. I wanted to apply to like a top 10 university in the States, which Duke, I think is ranked like 7. But instead of just having a mentor teach me about private equity and stuff, which I was going to spend a ton of money, I wanted the alumni base of Duke because a lot of them end up going to like Goldman Sachs investment banking or run investment banks all over the U.S. And to that point, yes, I haven't even started yet, but I've done my deposit. I'm fully enrolled. I got a email from one of the venture capital firms like, hey, we only work with Duke people. When do you want to have a talk? I was like, heck yes. So like I'm getting access to mentorship, to people who have been there, done that. And I'm also getting an alumni base that I can go access capital markets at.
Since we're on the topic of mentors, you hired the all-in guys to mentor you and consult with you on how to scale your wholesaling company. Yeah. So my question is, what do you look for in a mentor?
For me personally, I want them to be a believer just so our worldviews align. I want them, you know what I mean? Like, do you know what I mean by that worldview? Because if it's not aligned and someone's just going to chase money, that's not what I'm about. And that makes it tough. And so that's the first thing I look for is just that our worldviews are aligned. Our views about money and how we help people are aligned. And like Carlos, Sal, and Adrian, those guys love to help people. And that's like why I started companies. And so like when you start using that kind of language, it vibes with me a lot. I look for people who have done it. So I don't know if you follow Carlos Reyes on social media. He's literally like, he'll tell you don't hire a mentor without seeing tax returns, without seeing bank statements, without seeing this stuff, because like it's so easy to go get sucked into a mentor or someone who acts like they've made it.
Guru.
The fake late night gurus, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's so easy to be taken by them because a lot of those guys haven't done it. And so the fact that Carlos is willing to just like open up his life to prove that he could help you is also really big. Like he's a very trustworthy person. Those are the biggest things, and that they're in the industry you want to be in, right? Like I'm not going to go hire someone to teach me about like basketball when I'm not trying to become a professional basketball player. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So industry, trustworthy, they've been there, they've done it, and worldview aligns.
I love that. Since we're on the top of wholesale of mentors and somewhat real estate, I've been following Carlos and I see that he's been diving into private equity now.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had chats with him about it, of the angle that he's trying to take for his business?
So they actually stopped it because they didn't like. How did he describe it to me? He didn't like lose a lot, but it was hard. Like, dude, private equity is tough. Like seriously, I bought a company for $200,000 and it was like, I literally just lost $200,000. That one company I told you about. And so you can really quickly lose a lot of money. And so that's why, I don't know if you've been seeing their posts, like they're going all in. That's so funny. That's why they do that. They're going full blown, full send or whatever you want to call it back into wholesaling because they like took a break from real estate, but they thought private equity is where they wanted to go. And I was with them in January in Phoenix and they were like, man, we should have never stopped wholesaling and flipping and stuff. So that's why they're going back into that full time because they do so well in it. And not to say they didn't do well in private equity, but they realized their niche is wholesaling. And so they're crushing it again because of that.
Gotcha. What do you think? Obviously, you were very close to him and you got mentored by him. So what are some of the traits, I guess, that you believe made them successful wholesaling?
One, they're honest. Like a lot of people in wholesale will just go tell everyone that they're the end buyers. I used to do it, dude. I'm a culprit of that. Like, I'm the one buying your house. Like, no, you're not. Your dumb 20-year-old self not buying my house. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they're always honest. They would always put other people above themselves and do their winners. Like, you sit with Sal. I sat with Sal in his office while I was there. And the dude's like on go high level, like building these automations and doing this stuff. And I'm just like, I have no idea what you're doing. He's like, yeah, well, if this person does this, we're going to sell this. I'm like, you do you, Sal. Like, they're smart. They're winners. They know how to market. They know how to market themselves. And, dude, they're excellent closers. So,
Do you feel like the skill of sales is important in entrepreneurship?
you're going to die without it.
Why?
Marketing and sales are probably the two most important things in running companies because if you don't sell, then you're going to run out of revenue. And you have to have marketing to make sales.
Interesting. So you feel like if somebody wants to get into business, the two skills they should learn are marketing and sales.
Yes.
Gotcha. Which one do you think is more important?
Sales.
Why?
I go back to my early days of wholesale. I didn't do any marketing. I just door knocked. And that got me by for a while. Now, if you want to scale, so I think to start, you need sales. To scale, you need marketing.
Interesting. More importantly, the right marketing strategies.
The right marketing strategies.
Gotcha. What are your thoughts on wholesaling now?
Man, I haven't been in it in a while now. It was this past August, July. Dude, it's been a while since I've been in it. I'm hearing a lot of people are not doing well. I don't know. I'm hoping people are doing really well.
What do you feel like that is, though? Why do you think people are not doing well?
I think it's interest rates and just the economy. And I could be completely wrong. Some people I've talked to, like New Western, of course. New Western's always crushing it because one of the biggest wholesalers nationwide. I don't know how like the small individuals are doing, I guess. I don't talk to enough of them. But unless someone already has a place lined up for them to move to, like no one can afford housing right now. Housing prices have continued to rise and interest rates have stayed high. So if someone sells their house to you, where are they moving to? If they had a mortgage, their payment's about to go up $9,000 a month or whatever that actually is. You know what I mean? I'm exaggerating, but where are they going to go? And so people aren't selling right now. Like inventory is still super low. Yeah, people just don't know where to go.
If people like Carlos and Sal obviously know that, why do you think they want to get back into wholesaling?
Man, they're big enough. Like their team is big enough too, and they have good enough processes, sales processes that like they'll be okay, right? Like I'm more worried about like the tiny mom and pop wholesale shops who maybe don't have the resources or so. Like I said, New Western, they're doing fine. The Carlos and Sal's are doing fine. The guys who have been around for a long time and have some cash to float through the hardship. But okay, if you actually go listen to the podcast I was on with Carlos and Sal in January, Sal mentions in that podcast that they had a really rough 2024. Not really rough, but like it was turbulent. So like they're not immune to it, but they also know that with their previous success in their systems and processes that they're going to be okay because they've got it down to a T.
Gotcha. So you're not wholesaling anymore. You're doing a little bit of private equity, but the thing that you're somewhat known for is the hard money lending. What can you tell us about that? How did you get started into that? Why are you doing that as opposed to other business opportunities?
You know the honest answer why I started hard money lending?
What is it?
The last flip I did, I was standing outside in the Texas heat, just finished a flip, realized I went over budget per usual, hated every second of it, dealing with contractors not showing up and all this stuff. And I get the settlement statement and I go back and look at what my private money lender made versus what I'm going to make. And I made decent money on that flip. Like it wasn't like nothing to say sorry about. I realized my private money lender made just as much as I did.
Wow.
And I was like, why the heck am I not getting into this? Why can I not just hit click send wire and make just as much if I was going to flip properties and go through none of the headache of flipping the property? That was the day I was like, what am I doing? There's so much smarter ways to make money. And that's when I started like researching private equity, venture capital. And hear me say this, rental properties are great. I still own them. The appreciation's amazing. Cash flow can be really good depending on how well you buy. Dude, the return on investment from buying part of that title company, so much better than any rental property I've ever owned. Realizing that rentals are great for appreciation and all this stuff, great long-term play. But if you were like, you know how many people come to me like, man, I want to replace my cash flow. I hate my job. I want to quit my job. Help me buy rentals. I'm like, dude, no, you need to go buy companies. The return on investment in buying companies in terms of cash, like cash flow immediately, so much better.
What can somebody do? Let's say they have a 9-to-5, and I don't know if somebody's that is having a 9-to-5, no experience, should buy a business. What are your thoughts? That's just my personal opinion.
But I'm not saying buy a business. I'm saying like, so yeah, like venture capital where you buy part of the company or invest into the company and then you got to go make it better, right? That's what venture capitalists do. They go buy distressed companies, heck, maybe not even distressed. They go in and operationally make it better. And then they usually want to exit it. Private equity to its core is saying, here's some cash for you to go make it better. I want returns. But operationally, you're not doing anything. And there are people who are just sitting with cash who have 9-to-5s that I'm going to do the title company. I'm going to be vulnerable with numbers about the title company right now. And we have one closer in the title company. They're probably going to hire a second and third. So with one closer, I bought 2% of the title company for $50,000.
Wow.
Okay. On average, I get back $1,200 a month.
Wow.
With one closer. If they go hire a second one, double it. And I'm not flipping a property. I'm not dealing with tenants. I'm not dealing with repairs and ice storms and all this crap, which I am still finding insurance check on one of my rental properties for. Average $1,200 a month from spending $50 to buy that title company, part of that title company. Operationally, I do nothing.
How do you find those opportunities?
You know, like LoopNet, where everyone goes and looks at commercial.
Yeah, commercial.
Everyone looks at commercial properties. You know, they also have a business side of that.
Is it Biz by Sell?
I think that is what it is now. Dude, there's a ton of websites. You can go talk to business brokers as well. But there's statistics that all the boomers are about to need to exit their companies. And like, I know a bunch of people who are starting private equity venture capital firms solely to capture this opportunity of this mass exodus of like service-based businesses and all these businesses from the boomers who want out soon.
What do you look for whenever you buy companies?
Well, I haven't been looking, so that's part of the one time I looked, which was for the mortgage brokerage, it bit me in the butt. The rest have just come to me. I look at financials. I want to make sure they're healthy, stable. Biggest thing, I actually read this book called Secrets to Sand Hill Road, and the guy who wrote it works for Mark Andreessen, one of the biggest venture capitalists out of Silicon Valley. And he breaks down what they look for when they buy companies. And it's just people, in this order: people, processes, product. And so first thing you look at is the people. Who's the CEO? Who is the COO? Who are the partners? Who are all these? Like, you have to, again, worldview, like I said about Mentor, do you align with them as people? Do you think they are going to be able to take that company to the next level? So first thing's people. Processes. What processes do they have in place? What sales processes? What marketing processes? What, depending on what type of company, and just like what do they have in place to scale? And then third is the product, which is funny because most people are like, well, I want to buy a tech company, or I want to buy a marketing company. I want to buy whatever. I'd actually look at the people and processes first, and the product, like, yes, I want to know about it. I'm not going to go again buy something I know nothing about, but like, you want to know people and processes first, because ultimately that's what you'll get your return on.
Interesting. So you're buying businesses. You got an AI. You got a hedge fund. You got one more.
The mortgage brokerage I'm just out of.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's talk about your lending company. Like, what is it that you do, and who is it that you serve?
Yeah. So we mainly serve like real estate investors, people who are fix and flip, buying rentals, DSCR loans. We are not a licensed mortgage broker, so we cannot do personal loans. We cannot do personal residences. So we can only do in the non-qualified mortgage space and into LLCs. So, but like our bread and butter is like fix and flip. You know what I mean? And so we're also been getting into business loans. So if someone's like, hey, like one we're doing right now, someone has notes with a state. I don't know how that happened. Like the state of Florida, they have accounts receivable from them, but like the state of Florida's taken a while to get that money back to them. So like we'll do a line of credit using that as collateral, just so they can free up some of their cash flow. And so that's just an example of a business loan. So you
primarily do fix and flips, and you serve real estate investors. Is there like a criteria, or what do you look for in a borrower before you lend to them? Like, who's the perfect ICP, I guess?
Well, I mean, perfect is like 800 credit score, no debt, tons of liquidity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like we actually have products that can go as low as 600 credit scores. We have products if you don't have a ton of liquidity. We have we have a product for everything. Like, we don't say no to loans. It's just if you want to say yes to the terms that come with that, right? If you're a perfect borrower, then you're going to get incredible terms, and you're going to be sub 10, no cash out of pocket, living your best life. But like for majority of people, we'll go up to 75% LTV, 85-90% LTC of that, and you got to have some liquidity.
Okay. So how does somebody, I guess, partner or borrow from you guys?
Easiest way is just to go to our website at arisecapital.com and fill out our easy quote. Once we have that in, we can start the process, and we're what's called like a hybrid lender. So we're a direct lender where we actually are holding notes, but because we're in the process of raising capital, we don't have unlimited funds. So if we run out of funds, we will, we have a massive list of, not massive, we have a tailored list of family offices, credit funds that will fund it for you on our behalf. So We're like a hybrid lender in that sense. But yeah, we just need you to go to our website, fill out our easy quote, and we can get the process started.
What does that process after they fill out that form looks like?
Once they fill out the form, one of our account execs will get in touch with you and pretty much just walk you through like, hey, we're going to need, now that we have information on the property, on you, we're going to need, for example, 3 months of bank statements and, personal financial statements. Sometimes we need those, sometimes we don't. Like they're going to give you a list of like 3 or 4 docs that we need. A lot of times we don't need appraisals. Sometimes we do, depending on where the property is. So it's just like kind of that normal underwriting. But like there are some times we've closed deals in 48 hours. Sometimes it takes 30 days. But yeah, it's really simple actually. We'll request a few docs, request the appraisal if we need it, make sure title's open and cleared, and go to close.
Another question I have is obviously there's lots of lending companies out there. Why should somebody work with Rise Capital as opposed to another one?
One, we're never going to lie to you. There's actually a lot of like brokers out there that will say, hey, we're funding your deal. And then they just like shop your deal to a lot of people. And that's why like I'm straight up like, hey, we're hybrid here. Like I can prove to you here the notes we're holding. And if your property is somewhere we don't hold notes, we will make sure you're aware of that and make sure that the whole step of the process of who is funding your notes. So that way it's just above board on everything. So one, we're never going to lie to you. We're never going to tell you, hey, we're the direct lender on this specific note. Here's exactly the process of what's going to happen with XYZ, or if it is us, with us. And I think the reason like a lot of our competitors are very specific. Like we do this one thing because we have so many options and we've built relationships with these giant family offices nationwide. I kid you not, I've said no to one loan. We do not say no to loans. If you have crazy, weird stuff going on, like we will say yes to it because we have someone who will fund it. I don't know how we got to that point, but like that's what I want my like tagline to be like. We don't say no. It's become kind of unique because we can fund pretty much anything. The one we said no to, just so you're probably like, what's the one he said no to? The dude had a 500 credit score, had like 20K liquid and wanted a $1.8 million loan. I can't make miracles happen. Yeah.
Okay. I want to go on top of this, right? Your acquisition managers who used to work for you, I'm not going to say names, but they went out and they started their own lending company. What are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, I probably won't get into it too much, but it hurts. They took one of our account execs too. Look, they're all 1099s. They all, back to the whole thing, like W-2 versus 1099, like legally they can do that, morally, ethically. Yeah. That's between them and God, not between me and them. And it just hurts, So those are my thoughts.
Obviously, before this podcast and during the podcast, you mentioned a lot of struggles and challenges that come with entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
How do you sort of navigate that or get past it?
You got to get mentally tough. This is not for the weak. And you know this as a business owner. Running a business is not for the weak. It is hard. It's going to come with disappointments. It's going to come with a lot of letdowns. It's going to come with a lot of highs. It's going to come with some exuberant times where you're like, holy crap, this is the best thing ever. Why did I ever do anything else? And then times where you're just like, am I depressed? Yeah, I would say like, just get right mentally. If you got to see a counselor, go do it. There's nothing wrong with that. If you got to Sabbath 5 days a week and be productive too, do it. Like whatever you need to do to stay mentally sane, stable, and strong is the only way forward. Because like, if you can't put one foot in front of the other that day, like you're going to fail, and you have to put one foot in front of the other.
What's your why? You're doing so many things. You got a lot going on right now, good or bad. What's your why?
Mine has always been to help people. And I've mentioned it in this podcast, like we're doing that. Like we're providing housing across the world. We're providing visas across the world. We're providing ways for people to have sustainability in their lives because we can create sustainability here. And like, if I was doing this for the money, I probably would have quit a long time ago because money is not eternal. You can't take it with you. Go experience the world. My wife and I have been to 30 something countries. My 6-year-old's been to 10. Like, I know people who are 30 been to one country. Like, go experience the world. That's my why. Like, at no point are you going to take that money with you when you die. You could leave it for your kids and stuff. So I'm not saying be belligerent about spending money, like create the generational wealth, but like experience the world, experience what God created, experience life, man. Have fun with your kids, have fun with your wife. You need to get married, Ben.
At 20, I don't know. I don't think so.
I got married at 21.
Oh, wow.
Just saying. But that should be the purpose of life, is to experience it, not just to slave away.
You bring up your wife a couple of times. She's been a partner in the business. She's helped you get through tough times. She's, mother of the family, woman of the house. And this is just advice for me personally, so I'm just being selfish here. What are some traits that you look for in a wife that you would tell me as a 20-year-old? Like, what should I be looking for?
So when I met Bailey, we both wanted to go into missions. And so like we wanted to be missionaries. And so one, worldview. I've mentioned worldview a couple times tonight. Like, you don't really ever want to be unequally yoked. Do you know what I mean by that?
No.
You don't want, so like in the Bible, it's like they reference that as like, if I'm a believer and she's not a believer, that makes for a pretty tough marriage. And so one, we're equally yoked. We both believe in Jesus. 2, worldview, how we view missions and wanting people to know Jesus as well, and how you go about doing that. Worldview and vision of where we see life going. We both wanted to be missionaries. We wanted to raise kids overseas. We wanted to create a life that wasn't just a 9-to-5, which again, for y'all watching, nothing wrong with 9-to-5s. That's just not what we had envisioned for our lives. And all of those lined up. So that's like worldview, like how we wanted our world to be shaped, matched. For you and how much you work and how good you are at it, if you went and found a girl who wanted to go party, that's never going to work for you.
No.
That's unequally yoked. That's not the same worldview.
Gotcha.
So that's like 1. 2, I don't know, you just enjoy being with her. You laugh together. Do you have fun? Like, you could have the same worldview and just sit here watching Netflix all the time. You're having fun together. Like, no, my wife and I have been to, I really need to know the number. It's like 30 something countries. Like, we've traveled the world together. We've had some really funny, in Egypt, I got offered 58 camels for her. Like, we laugh together because we get stupid stuff like that happen. That's a real story.
That's funny.
Yeah. So like someone that you actually can experience life with outside of these walls.
Can you share that story? I'm actually curious now.
We were in Egypt. I mean, it's pretty short. We were at the pyramids of Giza, and we were getting on a camel, and I broke the camel too. I'll keep the story going for that. And so we're getting on this camel, and we're riding through the desert, panoramic views of the 3 pyramids. And and our guide goes, "Your wife is very, very beautiful. I give you 58 camels. She stay here with me." And to this day, I don't know if he was joking or not, because like that's actually a thing. And that, like, we lived over there, so like I can tell you that's a thing. And to this day, I don't know if he was joking or not, but yeah, he was like, "I'll give you 58 camels for her." And I was
That's
like,
funny.
I'm gonna pass, thank you. And then I don't know what happened, but like the camel I was riding, his name was Pepsi. He started limping, so I had to get off and walk through the desert.
Oh,
and that was fun. It was hot. But
so to step back, how did you come up with the mission of wanting to build? You said build schools, build stuff overseas to help people.
That actually was trial and error too. So for the longest time, I thought I was actually going to buy real estate for missionaries overseas because I thought it would provide visas and sustainability. But I was like, crap, you have to have a lot of capital to do that. And like you're just deeding properties around the world to these people. And the reason that I came up with that idea because there's like 122 countries in the world that if you purchase real estate in it as a U.S. citizen, you get like automatic residency.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, well, that could help a lot of people. Then I realized I didn't have that kind of money, so I stopped that. And then I was like, well, what's just like a more practical? And I got introduced to this guy. Shout out Scott Jackson with Go Design. I got introduced just through a mutual friend. He was like, hey, we just help these communities who need schools, need houses, need whatever it may be for their community to function in Ethiopia and Uganda, in predominantly like Christian areas. Like, so he's built like Christian schools, and like teachers will have to come in from hours away, and it's not sustainable for them to teach the kids, go home, teach the kids. So like a lot of times teachers won't show up to work or whatever the issue may be. So we help build houses on the compound for teachers.
Did you start the charity, or you partnered with the charity and you just give them money?
Just partner with them.
Gotcha. So how do you find and vet charities to work with? Because one of my goals in the future is I want to build schools overseas as well.
Mutual friends. Find people that know someone. Like, so again, a good buddy of mine introduced me to Scott and his wife. And it's easy to vet at that point because you have mutual connections and stuff. Because, yeah, you can get scammed even from nonprofits. Yeah. So I always go through mutual friends. I don't like Google, hey, how do I do this? I'm like, hey, in my network, who's already supporting someone somewhere in the world, and how's that gone for you? And then go that way.
I sort of want to end it off like this. You're what I would consider a serial entrepreneur, right? You're doing a bunch of different things. You're not really on the phones, but you own somewhat a good amount of businesses, yeah, right? Based off of your experience being in business over the last however many years you've been in business, what are a few things you would tell somebody just starting out? They're a wholesaling business. They want to quit their 9-to-5. They want to make an extra $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 per month, build something that way they can take care of their families, take care of their kids, things of that sort.
Yeah, one, hire really slowly, because especially if you're working a 9-to-5 and you're trying to create something on the outside of it, hire slowly and hire correctly. If it's Culture Index or Myers-Briggs, whatever you need to do to get the right person in the right seat, do that, because if you hire poorly, it's gonna delay your success. Don't be scared to spend in marketing. We talked about how spending $5,000 is riskier than spending $40,000, but wisely do that. Talk to people like Benjamin here who can guide you on that. Learn to deal with fear. And we talked about the mindset of like being strong mentally. I think I wish I could have dealt with fear better early on, because no matter what you do, whether you're working a 9-to-5, starting a business, doing both, having kids, getting married, hiring people from Europe, taking them to steaks, there's always like a fear component. And Will Smith actually had this video and it stuck with me, but it was about fear. And there's something he said at the end, but on the other side of fear is the fulfillment of God's promises. If you can learn to deal with fear in everyday life, chances are you're going to see a lot more success.
There's a saying about fear that has resonated with me a lot. It's fear's basically false evidence appearing real.
Yeah.
That's something I love about that.
So if you can learn to manage that and how to like identify it and come up with solutions to move forward, you're going to be successful. Dude, so many people come to me, dude, I want to quit my job. How do I buy rentals? How do I do this? And I go, first things first is like, you got to get real comfortable knowing that like you're going to quit your job quicker. And none of them ever do. I know people who came to me 6 years ago, like, I'm starting this process. I'm quitting my job. I'm still in the same job.
Why do you think people take that long to make a decision that could alter the, direction of their life?
Fear. 100%.
How can someone get over it?
I don't know. I wish I had the answer to that. I'd be a billionaire, because I would make a lot of millionaires around me. But some people just, and not in a bad way, nothing against those people. If you're super risk averse, you're just going to have a hard time taking the jump because the security of money, and like, don't get me wrong, I get fearful of like bankruptcy and this and that, right? Like, and I have been in the past. But one of the things I always have to identify, and Bailey and I always talk about, was like, well, if we go bankrupt, we'll just build it again. Like, if money's not eternal, then credit scores aren't eternal. Losing your house isn't eternal. So what is there actually to be scared of?
Do you feel like if you lost everything, you could build it back again?
Shoot, man, I'd probably do it better now. I've learned so much.
In what way?
Just, you know, we have a little bit of debt, but like, part of me is like, man, if I ever went bankrupt, wipe all this stuff out and just start over, it'd be kind of nice. No, I'm kidding. Just taking, I could build it back, and taking what you learned would help a lot. Just hiring more slowly, not having a revolving door of people. And like I still feel guilty for the revolving door of people that I had around me because I feel like I failed them. And I would fix that on the second go around if I had a second. I'm not going to have a second go around, but like I've fixed it now, but like that would be nice to, wish I could go back and not have that.
What else would you do differently if you lost it all and rebuilt it again?
Not wholesale.
That's fun.
Just kidding. Wholesaling is a great way to get started, actually. But it's also like you got to just put in the work. Wholesale is a grind. No, I would definitely wholesale again to start. But what else would I do differently? I mean, besides just hiring a lot more slowly, learning to like getting everyone on the same page on the bus, moving in the right direction. I don't know what else I would do much differently. I mean, I've enjoyed the journey. I probably wouldn't start 7 different companies at once. I'd start one. I would start one.
Because of the focus.
The focus.
The final thing is there's a tradition on this podcast where I like to ask, transparently, I don't remember the questions from the last podcast, because the way it works is you would ask the next person a few questions, 2 or 3 questions, without knowing anything. All you would really know is that they're my clients and they might be real estate investors. They might be big, they might be small, they may be doing $500,000 a month, they might be doing $20K a month.
How did you get suckered into working with Benjamin? Just kidding. I kid.
I will ask that tomorrow, actually.
You have another one tomorrow?
Yeah.
That a boy.
Yeah, we're gonna do a whole day.
Oh, so I have to ask that. Is it a guy or girl?
It's a guy.
I have to ask him 3 questions.
3, 4, however many you want.
Okay.
Some examples in the past were like, what are some KPIs that you track in your business?
Yeah.
Who do you look for when you need help? Another one was why.
Okay, so I'll do why. Like, why did you start your businesses? Second is, because we've talked about it a little bit, what do you use to hire your employees, whether it's Culture Index? Do you use anything at all? 3 is, what's the most amount you've spent in marketing in 1 month?
Okay. Is there anything else you would like to share with the audience?
I think we've covered it. Just have fun. Enjoy life. Take the losses in stride and take the wins and have fun.
Great. So guys, that's Chris. I appreciate you coming out. You drove 3 hours to hop on my podcast. Guys, if you enjoyed it, please don't forget to like, comment, as well as subscribe. And if you want to, I'll drop Chris's Instagram or his Facebook in the description so you can reach out to him and connect with him. With that said, my name is Benjamin, CEO and founder here at Bolt Deals, and I hope you have a great rest of your evening.